Hi guys, we're going to talk about a little bit of nutrition tonight, kind of give you an outline of what the CrossFit prescription and dietary plan is. I'm going to introduce Coach Jason to talk a little further.
Alright guys, we're going to talk about what CrossFit describes the optimal nutrition plan to be. So basically what they advise is meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, a little starch, and no sugar. So basically what that means is you can eat all of the healthy meats and green veggies that you want pretty much. Those are going to be fine for you. Things like fruit, you want to kind of moderate your intake on those. You don't want to go too crazy because there are some natural sugars there. Starches like potatoes and rice, you kind of want to limit those. Only have them when you're doing a lot of activity. And then of course no sugars such as cookies and candies and sweets and that kind of stuff. Things like dairy, basically what CrossFit says is you kind of have to test it. You should try to eliminate it for 30 days and then introduce it back into your diet, see if you can agree with it or not. If you don't, obviously then your body doesn't handle it well and you shouldn't have it. Same thing with things like gluten and nuts, do the same type of thing, because even if you're not allergic to nuts or gluten, you could be mildly reactive and you wouldn't know if you're having a negative reaction until you eliminate it for a period of time and then add it back in.
So Jason, I have a question with your last comment.
Do you?
I do. So would you recommend that we add all of that back in at once, or cut it out and slowly introduce it back into our diets?
So I'm sorry, I didn't explain well. What you want to do is try to go a period of days, like 30 days without eating, if you're cutting or you're trying to test dairy, for example. Try to go 30 days without any dairy, and then, don't go crazy at adding it back in. You need to have your entire diet pretty much consistent, and then maybe do like a glass just in the morning, or it doesn't matter when, but then you have to see what happens. You have to maintain the rest of your diet constant from the month prior. Don't change anything else, otherwise you won't know if something else caused the reaction.
Makes sense. So the next portion of our nutrition talk that we want to discuss today is the paleo diet. It can be kind of confusing, so we're going to try to break it down to something easier. The paleo diet to me basically means something that would go back in time where I would hunt and gather. So any meats, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, anything that would come from the ground, and kind of elaborates.
Kind of sounds like that old CrossFit prescription.
Something that Jason talked about in the beginning of this video. So when I go to the grocery store, I go through the produce section, I stick to the outside aisles, and I don't really go down any of the aisles other than the outside aisles, and go for fresh foods, things that would expire within that week. So that's how I do it. Jason, how do you go grocery shopping?
Same way. If it's got a face and a soul, then I'll eat it. But if it had a face and a soul, if it came from a factory, I don't really want it because that's something that someone just made in a plant, and it's not real food that people would have eaten back in that Paleolithic era. So, explain to me what an empty calorie would be. So an empty calorie is like we talked about when you're in the grocery store, all that stuff that was processed that you're going to find in the middle aisles, like your chips, your cookies, all those sugars. Basically, when you're thinking about food, like a calorie food, you're either going to have nutrient dense, that means think about your veggies, you're getting a lot of minerals and vitamins every time you eat one, versus, so that would be a nutrient dense food. An empty calorie is you're just getting calories but no benefit of any minerals or vitamins. So you're going to eat sugar, you're going to gain 100 calories, but that's it. Your body's not actually gaining any benefit from the food.
So something maybe like soda?
Yeah, soda is probably, that gets kind of tricky if it's a diet soda or not. But if it's full sugar soda with a bunch of calories, then that's going to be empty. No benefit for your body.
That makes sense. So Jason, when we talk about empty calories, I think we have a misconception that if we eat less, we're going to lose weight. And I think that we need to explain what the difference there is in eating and fueling our body for fitness.
Right. So, like you said, unfortunately, people they have this idea that if you don't, or if you want to lose weight, you have to limit your intake. And really, what we find is that that's not true for a couple reasons. First is the idea that if your body doesn't think it's getting enough fuel, when you consume calories, it's going to store that all as fat because it thinks it's going to need that going forward. So you eat this fuel to use now. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Your body's going to store it all. And also, if you're not eating enough, you're not going to be able to push as hard in workouts. You're going to be really lackadaisical, and your body's just not going to work as hard, and you're going to burn less calories. So it's kind of a downward spiral there. What we need to do is actually bump the calories up. It's going to give us more energy. Your body is going to have enough nutrients to start working and bump the metabolism up where it needs to be. And then you're also going to promote muscle growth, which is also going to help burn calories.
So then that goes back to eating good calories versus bad calories.
Mm-hmm.
And what we talked about earlier was making those better choices and not eating those empty calories.
Right. And that's what you see is a lot of people think they're eating a lot of calories or a lot of food. In reality, they're eating a Frappuccino from Starbucks, which might taste good, but it's just empty calories. Your body's not getting any benefit from it, and you're still hungry after you drink it or eat that kind of stuff.
So we talk about toning, and we want some people don't want to build muscle. They maybe want to be lean and lose weight that way, and don't want to be all bulky that way. So what would you say to that?
Okay, so yeah, I did say if you eat more calories, you're going to gain muscle. Well, the thing is, some people say they don't want to get bulky. I know a lot of people are trying really, really hard to get bulky, and it's not as easy as you think. It's going to take a lot of hard, consistent work over periods of years. So if that's your concern, it's kind of a moot point. I mean, it could happen, and if you're consistent over a period of years, it might happen, but it's a long process for that. But what I can say about gaining muscle is you need to gain muscle to burn fat. That's the only way your body will metabolize fat is through muscles. And when you're strength training, when you're gaining muscle, then I kind of look at it as compound interest. If you're on a treadmill or a bike, you'll burn calories while you're doing the exercise. But if you strength train, you're going to burn calories while you're doing the exercise plus all the time it takes your muscles to heal. Okay, so that's kind of the compound interest. You're going to be burning calories all day long, and that's going to help reach your goal of losing weight and toning up.
So I have another question for you, and it's in regards to fats. So we talked about eating healthy fats earlier and empty calories, but I'm really concerned about eating and consuming fat. Can you explain to me how eating fat isn't going to make me fat?
Right. So sure, unfortunately, because in today's society, overweight people have been called fat, they think that the fat is what's making them fat, which is, it's a shame because it's not true. Our body needs fat to use as fuel as well. We need carbs, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. They're the three macronutrients that make up the diet. And without all three of those, our body isn't getting the proper nutrients to run.
So with carbs, again, empty calories, we want to make sure that it's a good carb, correct? So that would be our vegetables, our fruits.
Fruits and vegetables. If you're really active, then you can have like a sweet potato, maybe some rice.
And then others, let's elaborate on the fats. If I'm looking for fat, it's not necessarily fat off of a meat.
Right. Like nuts and seeds, when we talked about what CrossFit describes what we should eat. They say nuts and seeds, assuming you're not allergic to them. Avocados, coconut oil, that kind of stuff is all really healthy fat.
So that'd be the really healthy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a misconception, is basically what you're saying.
Right.
So I'm still really confused. I guess if you say carbs, I'm thinking white bread, I'm thinking potato chips, I'm thinking French fries. Fat, I mean, I get it now that you said nuts and seeds, maybe avocados, oils, that makes sense. What is a protein and a carb?
So basically think of protein as your meats. I mean, that doesn't have to be the only thing, but it's going to be your animal meat that you think of, pork, chicken, beef, that kind of stuff. Then your carbs are going to be basically anything that turns into sugar when it's digested. So that's going to be fruits, vegetables, potatoes, rice, grains, cereals, all that kind of stuff. All right, Dave. So I'm a new person in the gym, and I'm in on ramp, and I'm excited to get going. But I have no idea how much protein, carbs, fat I need to be eating. What do I do? How do I get started?
Well, there's a big calculations. There's a couple different things that we do. I kind of talked about earlier, just starting with the basics of paleo. That would be the first thing you can do, and you'd see some benefits there.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other things that you can do as well, and it's called the zone diet. And it's a little bit more complicated there, but you can see one of our coaches. They'd be happy to sit down with you and go over those goals with you and kind of explain a little bit further into detail on what you should be eating and how much consumption you should be having. So I guess the biggest thing out of this nutrition talk today is just to be informed. Know where your food's coming from, know about your food, know what's in food, make better decisions, and then you'll be healthier all around.
Mm-hmm.
We hope that this has been informative for you. We may put another video out in the future.
If you guys like this, let us know. Maybe we'll get into like organic and whole grain, and
maybe even talk about the zone diet a little bit further too, and talk about how we break down the blocks. But yeah, absolutely. Come see one of us coaches if you have any questions, and we can give you some more information. As always, guys, try to follow us on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, our Instagram, and our Twitter page.
all the socials.
All the socials.
Get all our hot content.
And send us likes. If you like the videos, we appreciate those, and any likes you give us on any of the other social media apps. Thank you for watching, guys. We look forward to talking to you next time.
Later.